Hello and welcome to Back to the Feature, the show where we talk about movies past, present, and future. Today we're talking about the brand new Marvel and Sony feature, Spider-Man Homecoming.
What's up, guys?
This one is a much anticipated comic book movie this year. I think we've all been really curious to see a full sample size as the Tom Holland Spider-Man and to see Spider-Man reintegrated into the Marvel Universe. Now, obviously, with the rights being owned by Sony, but the rest of the MCU being owned by Marvel, this was a hard thing to put together and to finally see come to fruition. So, John, how much were you kind of anticipating, Spider-Man Homecoming?
I actually wasn't anticipating it all that much. I love Spider-Man. He's my favorite Marvel character. But I was really I was holding back a little bit. I didn't want to be let down too much.
Well, I think it definitely goes without saying. We've had a lot of Spider-Man movies since 2002. Yeah. We had the first Raimi trilogy, and then we had the Amazing Spider-Man duology. To some mixed results there. So I think that, we've seen Spider-Man so much. I definitely agree. It was hard to kind of get, really excited about this because it's something that we've seen quite a few times in the modern, movie lexicon.
But it was, it's a great movie. I really enjoyed it. It actually surprised me it surprised me how much I love this movie. It surprised me, and that says something. I really have to applaud Marvel and Disney for doing what they did with this film because, like I said, I just wasn't that excited, and it really brought it out of me.
I think from the get-go and what we saw in Civil War, I was so excited to see a young, high school-age Spider-Man get Peter Parker back to his roots. I mean, Tobey Maguire I always really liked in the original Raimi trilogy, but even in the first one, he looks like he's 35. He looks a little too old, and it really doesn't focus on that part of him. He is quite a good nerd, though. I mean, he's embarrassingly so. The Andrew Garfield Peter Parker I never was too high on because that dude would not be a nerd. It's like, I just listen to the Smiths and skateboard. That guy would be getting laid all over that high school. That's ridiculous to me that guy's supposed to be a nerd. And this really felt really true to the character when you read him in the comic books and when you watched him in the show. This kid that is ostracized. He is, a nerd. He doesn't quite fit in. Even, I think it's funny, even the academic decathlon kids, he is still the loser. And I think you definitely get that he is the loser.
Tom Holland did an amazing job as Peter Parker. His appearance in Civil War was great. I loved it, but it was so short-lived. Seeing him in this full feature as Peter Parker and as Spider-Man, he was perfect. He's perfect in the role.
Maybe it's a little premature, but I think that Tom Holland is the best Peter Parker. Now, we can start talking about the Spider-Man part, him in the suit. I think Garfield's got a strong case. Tobey did some great things as well. But I think outside of the suit, Peter Parker, I have to say, I think this has got to be the best interpretation of the character.
For sure. Total agreement.
So obviously our titular character, for us, really got pulled off. I think that in the costume too, I think he's great. He's got the quips and the jokes. It seems to be really natural for him. And of course, because he's a gymnast, there's a certain way that he carries himself, and he's, I think, able to do this and that I think that in the suit he looks great, he moves great. And obviously, too, with all the web slinging and swinging, it's always fun to see Spider-Man in action.
Oh, yeah.
So the thing we haven't seen, though, in a Spider-Man movie yet is the Vulture. And in this movie, he is played by Michael Keaton. And I have to say, this is probably my favorite part of this movie. I loved Michael Keaton as the Vulture.
Michael Keaton as the Vulture was awesome. When I heard he was being, kind of vetted for this character, I was in so much excitement for it.
So you don't want to get your hopes up too much because you wanted it so bad.
Please cast him. But even like you said, that's an inspired casting. Initially, when they first announced it, I remember you saying that, and it totally is. Michael Keaton owns this role, and the characterization for it is great.
Yeah, his motivations are so clear and understandable. He's great as a villain in that way that he doesn't believe he's a villain. He is kind of this guy that sees himself as really, in a way, a victim. And he sees that, everybody gets theirs. When do I get my fair shake? and he's trying to, in his mind, even the playing field. And I think that when you have a villain where you can look at his motivations and they make sense, and in some ways you sympathize with him, I think that it just took this villain to that upper echelon level. Marvel's got villains again, folks, and Vulture was excellent.
Him in the suit, the overall concept and the design and this some of the battles between him and Spider-Man in this film, it's awesome.
I mean, considering
so
what his comic counterpart looks like.
Yeah.
This was definitely a really cool looking suit.
Especially the first scene when it grabs him off that truck and takes him up into the sky.
Yeah.
And you see it
scary, actually.
Scary, yeah.
Which is cool. There's kind of this general, it's almost this horror thing, this monster.
That's another really awesome thing about what Tom Holland brings to this role too, is that youth, and that youth to Peter Parker and Spider-Man. You actually feel he's scared at times.
He's vulnerable. He's a very vulnerable kid, and that's what I really like, is that he's a kid. There's things that he needs to learn. He's not OP yet. You know. I know a lot of people were complaining.
We've never seen that.
Yeah.
We've never seen that aspect of Spider-Man yet. In the first Spider-Man, he gets his powers and he's pretty much awesome.
Yeah, he's just swinging and he's got it all down, and he's a superhero. And this one, they make jokes in it. The training wheels protocol, and the baby monitor protocol, that Tony has installed in the suit. But it definitely, you get that feeling that this is an untrained kid, and you see why Tony would worry. And they make his, those things that he's doing, they make sense in the way that a parent would want to take care of this kid, and that he does have a lot to learn. Now, I already just mentioned him, but obviously Iron Man shows up in this. I don't know if you guys noticed in any of the trailers or the marketing, but Iron Man's in this one. No, and honestly, though,
he's not in it that much.
I really don't think that. I've heard some people complain already that he's in it too much. I think they complain if he was in it at all. But I think that he is in it just enough, and he is integral to what's going on in the plot. And he is a father figure and a parental figure in general, for Peter. The conversations that they have, especially after the ferry scene, I thought was just so well done. With the way that, this is when the adults, this is when I'm talking. He has these really parental moments with him, and I think they're just fantastic for both characters.
Yeah, I love this movie. You have to expect that too. We all knew, of course they're gonna put Iron Man in this movie. They wanted to get that. They want to get butts in the seats, and they're gonna push it in the marketing.
And that chemistry was great in Civil War. It was great to see it continue.
Yeah, this movie really flows really well with the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and of course they're going to establish that relationship a little bit, because that's the connection between this and Infinity War.
Yeah.
Obviously he's going to be going back to New York to grab them to go out to space or wherever they go, to fight Thanos. So I mean, it makes sense that connection is there. And that's what I loved about this movie. And some people, even Stuckman in his review talked about it's not quite its own story. I like that about the movie. I like how much it connects with just the MCU in general, and all the different things, especially with the opening scene.
I don't think that it's I never understood that complaint. Now when people levy it, that's what they do in the comics in the Marvel Universe. I don't know how many volumes you'll read of one hero where Iron Man shows up in this issue and Captain America shows up in that one. I don't know what you're complaining about. I honestly don't.
Yeah,
as a long-time comic book fan, that's what we love in comic books, is that those are interconnected. It doesn't require you to know a bunch of information, so I really don't get that criticism. I think that's just more nitpicking.
Let's get Daredevil into a Spider-Man film.
Yeah.
Let's just go ahead and do it.
They kind of make a reference. Because when he's talking about people doing street level stuff, he's like, they're kind of a different thing. He says, he makes some offhand comment. I thought that was maybe implying the Daredevil, Jessica Jones and stuff, what I call Marvel Dark, but Punisher and everything like that. I felt like maybe that was a little bit of a nod, which I'm hoping we start getting there. We start getting the Defenders and stuff like that, because these guys can hang with the Avengers. I'm sorry, they can. If Hawkeye can be on the team, Devil can be on the team.
Please.
And he won't break both of his arms like Jeremy Renner did this last week. But anyway, no, I think that that's what we signed up for. I don't understand where people complain that it's...
That's what happens when Marvel gets the rights from Sony. Like, that's what happens. Like everyone's excited about it, and that's what happens.
Like you're saying, though, it's like, people, it's too much of an MCU movie. It's an MCU movie. What were you expecting that was going to happen? So I honestly don't think that they overstep in any stretch of the imagination, because I think most of these references, people mention them because they look them up afterwards and they didn't really know them from the comics to begin with. So I really don't see that as being a complaint. I don't think that it was overbearing. If anything, it was just fun. It was so fun seeing Cap show up in these little PSAs.
Gosh,
those little touches were great.
It just felt so Marvel. Yeah, it just felt so like interwoven in the universe that they've established so far.
And that's what I really like too is when you look at the plot for Michael Keaton, and he is basically the salvager after the first Avengers movie. He's like scooping up all this Chitauri stuff. They got a contract from the city to clean up all this stuff. Well, then all of a sudden, the officials come in with the damage control department, like you guys maybe know from the comic books and Marvel. The team that's tasked with cleaning up after superheroes. Well, the team comes in and he loses the job. And he's got all this money wrapped up into it.
They insult him too.
Yeah, they insult him and then he assaults them. But I think it's really great because we're seeing again the result of what goes on in these previous movies affecting the world around it. I think that not wanting connection in your MCU movies is silly, and maybe you should watch different movies. So, speaking about MCU connections and universal connections here, there is a lot of Easter eggs, especially when it comes to characters in this movie. And I'm a huge fan of the Spider-Man's Rogues Gallery. It's got one of the best. It's probably second only to Batman. Spider-Man has tons of great villains, and it's already great seeing the Vulture being the main villain of a movie. But they also incorporate the Shocker. They actually have both versions of the Shocker. The first guy is actually named after the original Shocker, who in the comics passes away and passes the torch to Bryce, the second Shocker. They do it in a much quicker fashion in this movie, but
now you're
I thought
it
was... Yeah, now you're the Shocker. And I like he makes that pro wrestling comment because you remember the old Shocker costume was very pro wrestling. I thought that was really awesome because he's a C-lister. I know some people don't like that he was a goon, but I'm sorry guys, in the comics he was a goon. He was I guess a little bit special goon. He's a mini boss at best. So I think that incorporating some of these guys like that and some of these smaller villain roles is really nice. And then also we got a tease of the Scorpion as well.
That's a little more hidden.
Yeah, I know some people didn't catch it at first there on the ferry where his name is Matt Gargan, which automatically I was like, oh, I know who that is. And they showed he's got a scorpion tattoo on his neck. He is there doing an arms deal with the Vulture. We end up kind of connecting back later with that, but that was a cool little Easter egg. I really hope that they go ahead and that he's not just a goon. I hope they actually get him in the suit. I hope it's the actual Scorpion at some point if he develops into it.
They use it as the mid scene, mid post credit scene or whatever. So I'm thinking,
I'm hoping both those baddies come back from the post credit scene. So, and then also one of my favorite, actors, comedians, musicians. He's a Renaissance man of the millennium. Donald Glover is in this movie, and everybody knows him, and I was so excited because he voiced Miles Morales in the Ultimate Spider-Man cartoon. They were really excited about the prospect of him maybe being Miles Morales. Well, I'm sorry to disappoint you, but he's not. But he's really damn close. He is actually playing the Prowler. He's playing Aaron Davis in this movie, as you guys may know, as Miles Morales' uncle, and is actually the reason that Miles Morales ends up becoming Spider-Man in his storyline. Is a huge part to it, and he actually makes reference that he doesn't want these guns and stuff on the street because he has a nephew in this city.
Yeah,
so Miles Morales exists in the MCU.
Yeah, they've already started establishing it, and I've seen some complaints now that Glover was underused or not used enough, and how convoluted do we want the movie to be?
John, apparently we're supposed to have full intricate exposition of 14 characters in every film that's called one person's name. Apparently now Hannibal Buress needed to have more time because he would have been wasted. if anything,
I needed a backstory on the Tinkerer too. Why
yeah,
didn't they give me
can we get an
backstory on-
origin story on that, please? No, yeah, I know. That again, more nitpicking.
I think that it's like that complaint, just like you realize that they just established Miles Morales in the MCU already. Like it's right out of the gate, right there, and I don't know. I liked it. I love seeing him. And he's busy. He's busy working.
He's a busy guy.
He's a busy guy. He's working on Han Solo right now too.
Yeah,
so.
he's childish. He's working on his Childish Gambino album. He's working with Han Solo. He had the mustache in there too.
Yeah,
he had the mustache in that mugshot. I was like, he is a really, really busy. And if you guys have never watched his show Atlanta, go watch Atlanta. It is hilarious show. He's fantastic in it as well. So I mean, he's just proven that he's so talented on so many levels. I didn't think we needed more out of every single supporting character.
No.
There's already a movie that was almost 2.5 hours long.
Yeah.
I don't think they could have fit any more stuff because I really didn't feel like there was any wasted time or potential.
No.
This was a really lean, over 2-hour movie, which is to me a little insane. Mm-hmm. But no, I don't really feel like. I thought he showed up. He did a really great job in the little bits he was there. There's a lot of supporting characters like that way.
There's a lot, and we're going full spoilers here. Some of the changes. I'm sure there's a few people out there that are gonna, be a little uneasy about some of the changes they went with, like Flash. But Tony, what's his name?
Tony Revolori.
Revolori, that's right.
Before you say ravioli.
It's Revolori. No, but ever since, I was really excited to see him cast. I love him. He's awesome and dope, and of course, the Grand Budapest Hotel.
He's one hell of a lobby boy, I'll tell you that.
It's one of my favorite movies of all time. So seeing him come in and the changes that they made with that, I'm totally fine with that.
Yeah, he's more of like a rich snob kind of bully. He's in the decathlon team with him. And I think that it's more of a modern take than what the classic, I guess, more like, 60s to 80s bullies were.
Which 22 Jump Street.
I think it's the first one.
Yeah, they're both of them. They tear that one apart. Mm-hmm. They explain why.
Yeah, like in the two-strapping scene.
Yeah, the two-strapping
I think that is a great little commentary on that, how that has changed and how this generation is very different. And I think that they do a good job. And I mean, I'm not a kid of that age now. I'm not a 16-year-old in high school. But I'm really curious to know how kids of that age felt about this portrayal and if this feels relatable, if this feels like what their experience is kind of maybe like. But yeah, I didn't mind that change. I liked that he was this rich kid, and he was funny, and I really liked Tony Ravioli. I really liked Tony Revolori a lot, so it was really great seeing him in this. I liked that change. It did not bother me at all.
Yeah, and then, at the end, too, we do find out that Zendaya is MJ.
I liked her character. I mean, we don't get tons.
No, we don't get tons
with this character, but she's quirky and opinionated, and
she's a fun character. Like every time she's on screen, you're kind of like, what is that girl all about? Like what's going on with her? She's even sitting in detention. She's like, I just like drawing people in despair.
Yeah,
it's fun. But they changed her name too, and that's something at first I was a little uneasy about, but totally it worked. I liked it. I like what they're doing with it. I like the feel of the movie. I like the feel of the school and everything that's going on with it. I think it feels updated, but it feels like a good update, on all of it. So I think it flows well, it works well. I'm excited for more.
And I think it's kind of interesting because they've also in that way flipped the script a little bit with her, where she seems to be pining for Peter, that Peter doesn't notice her. And in that way, and that
it's a cool dynamic. Yeah,
she really would like for maybe him. I mean, there's some looks that she gives him that she really wishes that maybe he would notice her. So I think that is interesting instead of kind of this thing where we've got the male character, like entranced by this girl,
which
chasing
in
her
this
around
movie, it's Laura Harrier, Liz, which we find out later in the movie is the Vulture's daughter, which that scene is awesome.
Yeah,
like when and I love too like the realism in the scene because Michael Keaton catches on like right away.
Yeah.
Like he just connects the 3-4 different pieces.
Yeah, his
and
little
he's
the alibis there aren't checking out for those events.
Which I really liked how fast that scene progressed, and I'm sure there's going to be people he figured it out way too quick. No, that's how people would figure something like that out.
It's like people. It's like the idea of like if Gotham City existed, they wouldn't guess that the really really rich dude beating up criminals that has like a jet and a car and like all this stuff. Maybe he's like that really young billionaire.
Oh, the guy who
disappeared into like the Himalayas to train with ninjas or whatever. You know what I mean? Maybe it's some other guy. So I think
that's some of that comic
realistic.
book. Yeah, it's realistic.
So yeah, I definitely agree. I like that he figures that out.
It's really good tension. Michael Keaton is really intimidating in that scene too.
Yeah,
he pulls up the pistol against the seat. It's Michael Keaton and that smile too that he's got on him.
Yeah,
it's just, ugh.
Yeah, I thought the tension between those two characters was really great, and especially when that reveal happens. And I was really glad this movie kept that really close to the vest. You know what I mean? We didn't really know it until boom, it just kind of pops out like, oh no.
Yeah. The whole scenario going to the homecoming dance is all really intense. Like in the house, when he's just in a date, like he's just like, I don't...
Stunned, just
like I don't know what to say or do. Yeah, freaking out. Which... There's been some complaints about the tone in this movie too, and I don't really understand that. I don't really fully... I don't know. What were your thoughts on the tone of Spider-Man: Homecoming? Was it kind of all over the place, or did you feel like it was a very solid
Well,
tone?
I think that movies can have parts that are dramatic and parts that are funny.
Yeah.
I don't think movies are just supposed to be one tone.
Monotone?
Yeah. I felt like they balanced it really well. In general, I have found myself, for the most part, having lots of fun. There's moments of really great dramatic tension, but they're earned. They're all earned and built to. So I really don't think that you sit there and feel like it's all over the place.
There's so many good character moments, and that's what we've seen from Spider-Man. In Spider-Man 1, Spider-Man 2. I don't really remember much in Spider-Man 3, nor do I want to mention it.
I think your brain's trying to defend itself.
Yeah, it's just... there's some weird train going down the street right now.
Oh, Topher Grace.
But like Spider-Man, it's funny, it's quirky, but there's like so many strong character moments with Spider-Man. It's just rich with that, and this movie really did bring that aspect to it as well. Especially when he gets crushed, out of the. And like, that scene is amazing. Like
straight out of the comics, man. And
good.
It was good.
So good.
Tom Holland played it so well. You feel his fear, his desperation, and feel him dig deep. He has that moment of real panic, and I think he does a great job of showing it.
Yeah.
He doesn't try to just keep his cool and act like an action star. No, this is a kid. He still is a 15-year-old kid trying to figure this stuff out. Like I said, so we go on this journey, we grow with Peter, and that moment is such this great gut check moment, and we see him really, I think, in that way, really become kind of Spider-Man in that moment.
Yeah. Tom Holland brought it.
Yeah, like I said, I think it's arguable when we talk about in the suit. I think that all the guys are fairly close.
We need to see more.
I need to maybe sit and chew this one longer.
I think what really just comes down to it is that, in this movie it's establishing him. He's not really quite Spider-Man.
Yeah, he's not.
Whereas the first Raimi film, he's got the suit and then he's Spider-Man. He's all over the place. He can swing from air to air.
You mentioned that, the suit. Now that's the thing I've heard a lot of complaining about, is the suit is too technologically advanced. And I think that the movie makes a point in that he is actually not comfortable with that thing, that he wants kind of like it to be a little bit more basic. And I think too, trying to modernize it a little bit, he doesn't have spider tracking powers, for tracking vehicles places, in modern crime, I think having some sort of computer would be a good thing to have. I'm just saying. So a lot of that didn't bother me.
We don't know what his suit is gonna be in his next standalone film. Right now, Iron Man gave him a suit.
Yeah.
And then it kind of plays into the themes of the film.
You're mentioning too with Toby, it's like they say that he made that suit, he sewed that himself or something.
Right, get out of here.
And I think that it makes a little more sense, because they don't take that much away from Peter, because they still show how intelligent he is. He still created those web shooters on his own. He still built all these things. Tony just took the infrastructure of his huge multi-billion-dollar company he has. See, and that's the thing that I always kind of would get bugged with Spider-Man movies, is he's like this poor kid in high school, but he can afford to like craft like that was the problem with the Amazing Spider-Man movies.
Oh yeah,
really. Is that they made them like high school kids, but they're like working in these like really like professional like adult settings, and it's like no 16-year-old would have an internship where they had those kind of responsibilities and access to those materials and stuff. It makes sense that this thing was made by like Stark Industries, you know what I mean? That something with that kind of infrastructure.
If you don't like it,
if
you don't like it, it's a preference thing.
Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't detract from the film.
Well, I think that what happens in comic book movies is people start to make that like there's supposed to be some sort of checklist when it's like they forget that like these characters have been adapted and changed many times. So it's like a lot of times people zero in. It's like, well, you know, MJ's supposed to have, you know, red hair, and you know the suit's supposed to look like this, and his web shooter's got to work like that. And if you make any changes, or if you alter it, or kind of do any kind of different
purist
version,
mentality. Yeah.
Well, and I think it's like cancer though, because it doesn't allow these comic book characters to evolve. I think people hate like you know they tried like for so long now. Scott Snyder tried really hard with Batman in the comics to let him evolve and let him become something else. But because of fans' insistence that he never change, we can never find anything else to find out about the character. We know the character.
It's just the same
hammer. Exactly. Yeah. Is that back in the day that these comics would take risks, and that's where some of the greatest storylines ever came from. We wouldn't have Daredevil Born Again if they were like, hey, you know, what if the Kingpin found out that he's Daredevil and just destroys his life? You know what I mean? Like, that's a gamble. That's a risk. You know what I mean? And we're gonna tear it all down, and it produces one of the greatest stories in that character's run. So it's
who wrote
you
that
have
one?
The Frank Miller.
That was a Frank Miller.
So you know that's you know like he said you have to be able to take these risks. And like you know I think BVS is one. You know Batman killing, which he's killed in every single version of the movies, and we can argue about the semantics of that. But you know it's one of those things where they insist that these characters never change. Where it's like I actually kind of like the idea of exploring this character when he's back up against the wall, when maybe he does go to a breaking point. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Seeing these different things, exploring where these characters can go. And I think that people try to make them so black and white that it doesn't allow that kind of growth, and it doesn't allow the characters to examine those parts of themselves. You know what I mean? How can Batman know about his no-killing rule if he never actually does anything with it? If he never actually tests any of those boundaries, if he never has a moment of doubt. And I don't know a human being that doesn't work that way. So I think that, like I said, I think that insistence and that purity, the really orthodox comic book thing, that it really just kind of stifles any kind of creativity and growth for these characters that have been around now for some of them nearly 100 years. I mean, we're getting up there.
Yeah, we're getting there.
So yeah, I think
that was a passionate rant.
I feel very strongly about this, and I think the more comic book movies that come out, the more I see us get pushed up against the wall with that. You know, I think that we definitely need to be more open-minded, and I love these characters, and just kind of be interested enough to actually let them go somewhere new, and let them do something different, and test the boundaries of these characters and their psyches and who they are.
Although, I think Spider-Man really did bring it back home.
Yeah, I definitely think that this was, for the most part, this is an extreme success, bringing Spidey back to Marvel, into the MCU proper. I think this was definitely what I think everybody was really hoping that we would get from a new Spider-Man movie, and especially bring him into the MCU. So, John, we've obviously talked a lot about a lot of the things that we really liked and some of the passionate things we have about comic book movies and their adaptations, but what were some of the things, though, and I don't think it's a perfect film, what were the things that you maybe didn't quite like or didn't quite work for you in Spider-Man Homecoming?
Most of everything actually worked for me. There's just I think some of the things that it didn't quite do as good, maybe as some of the Sam Raimi Spider-Man films would be, you know, like the cinematography that Raimi is accustomed to and some of the editing techniques. And then, of course, Danny Elfman's score in the original Spider-Man films. I think all of those different technical aspects is what kind of like elevates those movies a little bit more, whereas this film is a little more serviceable. Yeah. But we see that's normal for Marvel, though. That's normal MCU type behavior.
Yeah.
There's nothing, I wouldn't consider any of those things flaws. I just think that some of those things drop back from being like the greatest thing ever.
Yeah.
You know, if it had some of those other things with it, I think it could have been like the greatest MCU movie.
Yeah, it just kind of propelled to that next
level.
Yeah, for sure. And you know, I think that there was some things too. You know, this was made by Sony, but they actually went with Industrial Light and Magic, who does everything for you know, the Marvel movies and doing the effects. And one of the things I will say, criticizing Marvel movies, is that they don't always have the best effects. Sometimes there's some stuff in Civil War I find that there's. Oh yeah, that's my big one is Tony in the airport scene when his head is in the suit. That doesn't look good. But there was some times, I think, in this movie when he's moving around, Spider-Man, he's swinging around, jumping on buildings and stuff, and there was, I think, some stuff with the Vulture, like when he's like mounting the suit like early on, that didn't quite look as good. And I think that maybe if they would have let maybe Sony actually do the visual effects, I think it actually would have looked a little better, looked a little cleaner, because they are honestly known for their visual effects. Just watch Life from this last year. I mean, they do visual effects better than anybody.
Good looking film, yeah.
It's a great looking film. And I think that was a little bit of something that it's like, it didn't take me out of the movie or anything. I'm not going to sit there like hammer the movie hard for it, but it definitely was something where it was not as great as it could be, that there was room for improvement there.
Yeah, I think it's just like there's just some room for improvement. Mm-hmm. I think that's really the only complaints I have with this film.
Yeah, I felt that the plot was really tight. The characterization was really strong for all of our principal characters, and then it's filled with a lot of fun supporting characters. I mean, yes, maybe they don't get tons and tons of
Favreau. He's got a lot of screen time.
Oh yeah, funny, John Favreau was great.
That character, Marissa Tomei does a great job as Aunt May.
I would say she's in it very little.
She's in it very little. I
would have maybe liked to see a little more.
Love the closing shot.
What the?
Just the film ends. That's awesome.
And then too, there's little stuff like Hannibal Buress as the gym teacher. You have Martin Starr, one of my favorite actors, as the decathlon coach. So there's
the cast is just
packed. I think there's a lot of people who wanted to be a part of it. Yeah. I think that's why you have guys like Donald Glover come and I'll be in like 2 scenes. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's a kind of hat tip to the animated show and.
Yeah, I think that they were just a bunch of really great like supporting characters and actors and stuff like that who are really able to just kind of elevate the little bit of time that they had. So I kind of like when you have a really talented actor, you know what I mean, in some of these little roles, because it really can just really help fill some of those characters out, give them a little bit more personality in life. So. Oh, and Betty Brant was played by, I cannot remember her name. She was just in The Nice Guys as Ryan Gosling's daughter in that.
Oh yeah,
she was the Betty Brant, who I think, as you guys know, she is. She ends up becoming J. Jonah Jameson's secretary. She ends up working for J. Jonah Jameson later on. So that maybe we'll end up seeing her later.
That's going to be a tough
casting.
Too. That'll be a tough casting to replace.
Oh man,
J.K. Simmons owned that one. I don't know. I don't need. Just bring him back.
I won't mind.
He can be DC and Marvel at the same time.
Commissioner Gordon and J. Jonah Jameson. That's fine. Total different temperaments there, by the way. Oh, man. So that's been some of the negatives that we had from Spider-Man Homecoming. Obviously, we both really liked it. So, John, what is your final summary and grade for Spider-Man Homecoming?
I didn't expect it. Even though Spider-Man is one of my favorite characters of all time, but this is top 5 MCU film for me. It's joyously entertaining from start to finish, and it's the first time I really felt like this was Spider-Man. Spider-Man through and through. Peter Parker, Tom Holland owned it. And it's awesome. I can't wait to see more. I give Spider-Man Homecoming an A.
Definitely a great launch pad for this character coming back home in this movie. And I have to say, as I said before, this is the best Peter Parker. We can argue about how good Andrew Garfield was in the suit. We'll talk about that later. Tell us in the comments after the video what you think. Who's your favorite Spider-Man? But I have to say, for Peter Parker, Tom Holland has that on lock. And this, I can't wait to keep seeing the Spider-Man grow. I was honestly grinning from ear to ear most of this movie, and honestly geeking out just the whole time. It was what I really was hoping to kind of get from a new Spider-Man movie, and definitely my favorite Spider-Man movie since Spider-Man 2. And I have to say, I'm having an internal struggle of what my favorite Spider-Man movie is now. It's tough now. And I think that is enough. I think for all of us that it's a solid enough movie that at least it's a conversation, right? So no matter what you guys think of it, I definitely think we got a really, really good Spider-Man movie in this film, and I can't wait to watch it again.
Yeah.
So I'm going to give Spider-Man Homecoming an A as well. It's not perfect. Some of the visual effects could have been a little bit better. But other than that, I really just dug this movie. I really, really loved it. So guys, that's been our review today. All spoiler talk. We figure by the time you guys have seen this, most of you have seen the movie. It's the Spider-Man we're talking about. I'm sure everybody's going to go see Spider-Man and Iron Man team up against the Vulture. I hope you guys enjoyed this review today. Tell us in the comments, like I said earlier, who's your favorite Spider-Man in the suit. You can find us on Twitter at BacktoFeature, and you can find us on Facebook at /BacktoFeature. I'm Giovanni Carlo.
And I'm John Mandalou.
And we'll see you guys next time.
Friends are up there!
The guy is still out there. I've just got to do this on my own.